But the storm of protest only fueled album sales. And in February of '89, as GNR Lies joined Appetite for Destruction in the top 5, the band decided to take a break from recording and the road. But their downtime quickly became an endless succession of wanton days and wasted nights.
That's where we really went downhill. That's where I got lost, Izzy got lost, Steven got lost, Duff even got lost, and Axl disappeared somewhere.
Slash didn't know how to entertain himself unless he was on stage or going to a gig or doing something. You know, so what did he do? Wake up, drink, and drink more?
I love Slash to death, but his drug abuse was out of control. Steven's drug abuse was out of control. You know, Duff's drinking, and Axl's, you know, wild-eyed vision of reality was out of control.
In October of '89, Guns got an offer to open 4 shows for the Rolling Stones in L.A. It seemed the perfect opportunity to bring the band back together. But on opening night, Axl made a shocking announcement on stage.
He implied if certain members don't stop dancing with Mr. Brownstone, meaning Slash and drugs, you know, the band was over.
They all were messing around with heroin, but somebody had a real big problem, and if they didn't stop doing it, that was the end of Guns N' Roses.
I know it was directed at me because I was all strung out at the time. That was one of the things that probably made me hate Axl more than anything. Something I probably never, ever forgave him for without really even thinking about it.
At the time, the tirade seemed to galvanize the band. In the spring of '90, Guns entered the studio to begin work on their most elaborate project yet. A double album of all new material.
We all managed to sort of straighten ourselves out, with the exception of Steven. Steven was so locked up that he just couldn't get it together.
He was so messed up with junk that he couldn't pull off the tracks.
The band had lofty ambitions for the new album, but Adler's debilitating heroin addiction made him a liability in the studio, and the sessions came to a grinding halt.
He couldn't play. He would lie to us, and we'd go over to his place and find behind the toilet and find stuff underneath the sink.
He couldn't leave his drugs, but there's other things beside the band that he was involved in with his drugs that have been very dangerous and scary, and that I want nothing to do with him.
In July of 1990, frustrated by their lack of progress, the band fired Steven Adler, only worsening the drummer's depression and drug abuse. He would eventually suffer a cocaine-induced stroke.
I did everything I possibly could to try and kill myself. I had nothing to live for. I mean, everybody that I knew, I thought were my friends, took everything they could from me and disappeared. I would drink a whole bottle of vodka just down it right before the sun was coming up so I could pass out.
As Steven spun into a deadly narcotic abyss, the band recruited former Cult drummer Matt Sorum. And in September of '90, Guns began laying down the tracks that would make up the epic double album, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2.
I just want to bury Appetite. I don't want to live my life through that one album. I have to bury it. So rather than just throwing a bunch of songs together that we think are fun, we're going over it, you know, with a fine-tooth comb.
His creative idea of moving forward was, we can't remake Appetite. The next record has to be in another direction.
But the impoverished gang of 5 who'd lived through the turmoil that inspired Appetite for Destruction had drifted apart. And from the start, sessions were literally phoned in.
Slash and I do a lot of our communication by phone. You know, what do you think about the end note in this? Okay, we'll change that to this. Hold this note a little bit longer, da-da.
It was impossible to get us into one room, all of us, at one time.
It was very dark,
there was a lot of just toxic sort of a feeling in the room, and sightings of Axl Rose were few and far in between.
User Illusions was all over the place. It was sort of like the Guns N' Roses version of the White Album, so to speak. Maybe not quite as good, but it was like all this material coming from all different directions.
Despite all the turmoil, Guns' double album was destined to become a phenomenal success. Few could have guessed that it would also serve as the band's last artistic gasp. Next, the Guns lose control.
The whole place collectively destroyed everything. It was one of the scariest things I've ever seen.
When Behind the Music continues. By early 1991, Guns N' Roses were both finishing up their ambitious double album and plotting a massive world tour. But as they hit the road, concert crowds discovered that the look of the band had drastically changed.
We had a horn section and pianos and all this other kind of crap, which we didn't necessarily want as a band, but it's something that Axl still wanted.
I remember feeling a bit like I didn't really sign up for this. I was kind of hoping to join a badass rock and roll band. You know? What's with the piano?
It just got bloated. It's plain and simple.
Always the dominant Guns man, Axl Rose now seemed hell-bent on seizing control of the band. Soon after the tour began, he gave Slash, Izzy, and Duff an ultimatum. Sign over the rights to the name Guns N' Roses, or the group would be history.
In his mind, the name belonged to him. And if something disintegrated, you know, he wanted to ensure Guns N' Roses' ultimate survival, even if this version of the band broke up.
If we didn't sign it, the band was going to break up right then and there. So we just did what we've always done and just kept the thing going.
But as tensions mounted within the group, the strain began to show on stage. In July of '91, a concert in St. Louis spun out of control after Axl dove into the crowd and tried to grab a camera from an overeager fan.
I jumped off stage, and yeah, things went haywire after that. And maybe I could have handled it better or whatever, but no one was really handling anything at that point. So I took it into my own hands with what I could do.
Within minutes, tens of thousands of people were enveloped in chaos.
The whole place just collectively destroyed everything. It was one of the scariest things I've ever seen.